Good morning this Friday. We are now in chapters 50-51 of Hardy's classic novel, Tess of the D'Urbervilles. And we find at the beginning of chapter 50, Tess on another long walk which begins in the equinoctial darkness. The last time she took a long walk was from Trantridge to Emminster Vicarage, and she left there late or very late at night or very, very early in the morning. Here she is again and walking. She takes the nearest course, takes the by-lanes, goes past the Blackmore Vale or the Vale of Blackmore, an old forest about which there are many superstitions. And Hardy is reminding us again that those old superstitions are dying out now. She enters Marlet, and she passes by the field where, early in the novel, the club walkers stopped to dance. This is the field where Angel danced with all the girls and rejected her, did not dance with her. Again, as we said back then, it was a foreshadowing incident because he has rejected her now. And she takes her place as the nurse of her dying mother and contemplates the children. Her father's ill health is indefinite. We can't tell what's wrong with him. But he's become a pathetic figure. He has this scheme to write to what are called antiquarians, old historians, asking them to subscribe to a fund for the ancient d'Urberville line. And no surprise, none of these antiquarians have sent him any money, and we know what he'd do with the money anyway. Tess's only relief right now from the stress of her situation is to develop a garden. The small town has a garden, communal gardens, and Tess has a plot in that communal garden. It's spring, the season of rebirth and planting, and she's behind because she hasn't gotten here soon enough. But she likes this work. It keeps her thoughts occupied. And after working hard, she manages to catch up her garden up, get her garden caught up with that of everybody else. She's oddly dressed out there in the garden that evening. Hardy says the effect of her clothing is being that of a wedding and a funeral guest in one. Unusual the way she looks, but it is spring, and in spring we all feel a little optimistic, although we're in this situation we're in with the coronavirus. And out of nowhere, as usual, Alec appears. And Hardy stops here to make an Eden parallel. And Alex says, "You are Eve and I am the other one." Well, yeah, you are. You're the representation of the devil. Even in the Garden of Eden, there was a serpent. He's the serpent in Tess's garden. She doesn't want to call him Satan, but she may as well. And he asks her, "Where are you going to next? Are you going to join your husband?" And Tess in this chapter makes a huge statement that she has not said before. She says, "I have no husband." So right there, she's disavowing her relationship with Angel. And so here he is. "When you get down to your house, you will see what I have sent there for you." He's offering her help. And in a little while, she's not going to be able to refuse that help. She's crying, of course. He runs the guilt trip on her. What about those children? And she has to think about that. And her heart quivers. So the next bad thing that happens in Tess's long train of misfortune is her father dies. There goes Jack Derbyfield. And oddly enough, Hardy says the mother and father have switched places. The mother's alive, the father's dead. The mother seemed to be ill and dying. Now the father's dead. But this has a consequence. Why? Well, this house is leased. It is not one of the houses of the tenant farmers. And the owner would like to put his tenant farmers in it. And when the father dies, the lease is gone, which means that Tess will have to move out of her home with her family. They're going to be thrown out on the high road, and there's nothing they can do about it. We're now in chapter 51. Hardy talks about two things in this chapter. It's interesting. An old custom and a new phenomenon. He talks about what's called in the country Old Lady Day. On Old Lady Day, farm laborers look for new jobs with farm owners. And it's kind of like an employment agency employment market. And this happens every year. But there's something else happening every year, and it's called what he calls rural depopulation. That is, people are leaving the countryside. Where are they going? They're going into the cities to work in the factories. And they're working in those factories 6 days a week and all the daylight hours. If you ever look at an old factory building, you'll see that it has big, huge glass windows. Why? That's how they lit the factory. They didn't have lighting back then. And they're working 6 days a week. And at this point in time, England kind of develops a drinking problem, because the 6 days a week, the seventh day is Sunday. And on the seventh day, the gin mills open and people go and drink gin to relieve the stresses and the strains of the 6 days they're working all the daylight hours. It's not a good thing. But a lot of people, Hardy says, are leaving the countryside to go into the cities to work in the factory jobs. Houses are being pulled down, and it's changing. The Industrial Revolution is changing a lot of things. And every farm that's left is required by a farm owner for his tenant farmers. Now, Tess's family is the lowest of the low class. Why? Well, the mother had got drunk at times, the children didn't go to church, the father was a drunk, and the eldest daughter, well, everybody knows, makes bad unions. She's got this Alec d'Urberville guy sniffing around. She's got Angel that she married, but he's not around. And the family's reputation is very poor. So Tess sits at the window, kneels at the window bench. There's a spider that was starved. And Tess is reflecting on the position of the household in which she perceived her own evil influence. Had she not come home, her mother and the children might probably have been allowed to stay on as weekly tenants. We're not surprised here. Here's Tess. She's always blaming herself for problems she did not cause. Okay. I ought never to have come home, she says to herself. But she did it out of duty to her parents' health. She's getting really angry now with Angel, and it's about time. And so she sits down and writes another letter. This one's very short, and it's very angry. I will never forgive you. I did not intend to wrong you. You are cruel. I will try to forget you. It is all injustice I have received at your hands. And that's it. And this letter is overdue. She probably should have said this back there in Wellbridge when they parted. And maybe she would have mastered him then and made him see that he should stay with her. She's saying it now, though. The postman passes by and takes the letter. And here he is again, the stalker. D'Urberville is back to talk to her some more. And there's this discussion here about the D'Urberville coach. This sound of a non-existent coach can only be heard by one of D'Urberville blood, and it is held to be of ill omen to the one who hears it. It has to do with a murder committed by one of the family centuries ago. So here's this evil omen thing about the D'Urberville coach. And it was a murder. Is this a foreshadowing statement? We're not sure. Alec now asks, where are you going to? And oddly enough, Tess and her family are going to go to Kingsbeer. Mother wants to go to Kingsbeer. What's in Kingsbeer? Well, it just happens to be the old feudal seat or stronghold of the D'Urberville family. The Kingsbeer Church was the church that they supported, and that must be where their lands were, in Kingsbeer, and that's where they're going. We don't know why. Alec now offers her his garden house. It's large. It will take her whole family in. She could stay there. But she doesn't want to. After all, it'll probably come with a price. Her throat is swelling with complicated emotion. He says he owes her something for the past. She saved him from being a parson, from that craze that I went through. Well, he wasn't going to be a good parson anyway. I am glad of this opportunity of repaying you a little. I have plenty of money, Tess says. She does not want his help, and she shouldn't. At my father-in-law's if I ask for it. So she's somewhat lying here, but she doesn't want any help from him. And here comes a character we've seen before, the paint pot man, the guy with the pot of red paint and the brush who goes around painting Bible sayings on walls. He painted one, "Thou shalt not commit," and the last word was adultery. Tess saw it right after she'd been raped. And Alec d'Urberville sees this guy and he wants him to go to the devil, which is basically, you go to hell. That night, Tess sits in her house with her siblings and asks them to sing to her, and they sing, "Here we suffer grief and pain. Here we meet to part again. In heaven we part no more." And she hides her tears. If she could only believe what the children were singing, she would like to meet again in heaven with someone. But things are getting worse and worse. They can't get much worse for her and her family. The next assignment, excuse me, I just missed something. Her mother asks who called. Well, Tess doesn't tell her mother who called and doesn't tell her mother about the offer Alec gave, because Joan would snap it up like that. And Tess does not want to go anywhere near Alec if she can help it. The next assignment is chapters 52 to 59. That's to the end of the book.